Akinbode Akinbiyi is a photographer, curator, educator, and writer. You have been focusing on sprawling megacities and especially those on the African continent in your work. You've been wandering cities like Lagos, Addis Ababa, Bamako, Dakar, Cairo, and Johannesburg. Some of the cities will, of course, be shown in the exhibition that is now shown in Västerås. And through these wanderings, it seems like you're searching for moments of everyday poetry, and your work, photography practice, has been shown all around the world. In 2017, you were invited to join Documenta 14 in Kassel and Athens, and you recently had a solo exhibition called 6 Songs Swirling Gracefully in the Taut Air at Martin Gropius Bau in Berlin. You originally wanted to become a lecturer at university in the subjects of English and literature, but your plans changed and you have been a professional photographer since the end of 1970s. We have several of your ongoing series on view in the exhibition, The Measure of City Pathways, some photographs from Lagos, Bamako, Johannesburg that we're going to talk about today. And you have a very particular eye for unpacking these hectic megacities, that finding both intimate moments that sort of highlights the undercurrent of urban landscapes. Could you perhaps describe the fundamental questions that are at play in an exhibition as The Measure of the City Pathways in Västerås? These sort of broad ongoing investigations of urban cities, what would you say are the fundamental questions that you are posing to yourself?
So, Ulrika, when I start out on my wanderings, which is usually almost every day, I try not to have any questions, actually. I try to be as open-minded, as open-sighted as possible. That means I go out of the front door and just engage with the city. Of course, I do have questions. So questions as to what is going to happen today, what am I going to see, and also very much also trying to understand my environment. So the immediate environment, be it Johannesburg or Bamako or Lagos or where I live presently in Berlin. And the idea is to just wander as non-judgmental, as freely as possible, to relax. I often call it a dance, but it's a dance not with another human being, but with the city itself. So trying to understand the city and to move with the city, so to speak. And then there's certain moments where things come together. Threads, we're all constantly weaving threads. We don't often see them, but then they come to fruition at a certain moments. And that's what I really then hopefully try to make an image at that particular moment. These are my own personal threads which I'm weaving ahead of me, but also the threads of fellow passers-by, people who are on the street or in vehicles, up in the air, all kinds of stuff. Of course, the architecture, the street, the way the streets, what do you call it, their pathways, all kinds of stuff. So I try not to limit myself, as I said before. I try not to have immediate questions. I mean, the deeper questions have to do with, where are we going and what is happening within the city? How is it evolving? How is it taking shape? So these are some of the fundamental, deeper seated questions which are there, but I don't try to put them in the foreground.
So when I invited you to do your first solo exhibition in Västerås, you were just in the process of soon to open your large solo in Berlin at Martin Gropius Bau. So I'm just, I'm sort of curious about if you would like to tell us a little bit about the approach to the exhibition in Västerås, because we, of course, have yeah, a room, like you have one room instead of several rooms, and you're working with your grids of images by 60 by 60. So if you would like to tell us how you, from the starting point, think when you're building a new exhibition.
It was very much in conversation with you, Ulrika. And then once we decided which bodies of work we would like to have in Västerås, we then prioritized which images. And then I realized it's just one big room, a very nice room. And then I start thinking about this, thinking and working almost liminally, so, such that I would go to bed and sleep, waking up in the mornings, think about how is it going to take shape, which images, what is the sequence, this kind of thing. And it takes, sometimes it can go very quickly. Sometimes it takes a bit longer. And then all the time, I'm very much for equilibrium, balance, so that the images together sing. But this is again coming into listening in, but it's an open-ended thing. So sometimes they can sing this way or sing that way. It depends also on the room itself or the walls. So I'm very much into that frame, trying to see the finished product even before it's finished, in the sense of how it's going to be exhibited. And then there are things like the grids and the images in a single line in sequences. And I'm very much into trying to tell a story with individual bodies of work, but all the bodies of work together as one particular story. And hopefully the visitors come into the space, the room, they can go to their left or the right, they can just go into the middle, but already they begin to look at and listen to the story. So this particular image was made about almost 20 years ago, 2004. It's on Lagos Island, Lagos. Lagos is just, now around above 20 million inhabitant city. And it's a series of islands and then the mainland, the Festland. And this particular day, in fact, I went to the building to the left here, which is an old Brazilian building in the sense that it was built by returnees from Brazil who returned from Brazil as freed slaves in the late 1880s, 1890s, and came back to the West African coast, settled, not necessarily where they had been enslaved from, but usually in the port cities, in Lagos, for example. And because they had learned in Brazil particular trades, especially in building trades, they started building buildings. So this is one of the iconic Brazilian buildings in Lagos for maybe about almost 100 years. Very beautiful building. And I'm looking, I'm standing, I'm looking at it from the side. And in the distance, you can see high rises from the central business district of Lagos Island. And I had just been inside this building, I think for the first time. So we had been interviewing some of the people living in the building on the first floor. You can see here a little bit balconies with iron railings, very beautifully wrought, beautifully what's the word, manufactured from about the 30s or the 40s or the 20s already of the 20th century. So this building was really a wonderful building. Unfortunately, it was pulled down about 4 or 5 years ago illegally. So now there's just a building, an empty plot there at the moment. So now, after leaving this building on that particular day, I was just making some photographs, and then from the side road, so to speak, not frontally, but the side road. And in that moment, this young girl was passing by, and she knew I was making a photograph, and she was laughing. Some people think she's almost crying, but she was actually laughing in this particular moment in going by. And important for me in this image is the coming together of very many different threads, architectural threads, threads of advertising, these signs like the rubber stamp, plastic identity cards, typing and lamination, and then also the wires, which is still done in Lagos, unfortunately. People don't necessarily have access to the central electrical grid, so they tap from the posts outside, so send up wires, which can be very, very dangerous. And then you see some, at the moment, empty stands in the foreground. So I love this particular image because it shows something of the, I call it density and intensity of Lagos. It's a very dense city, a very intense city, and it's constantly on the move, as you said, Ulrika. It's constantly evolving, constantly finding new ways to show itself. So this image was taken, sorry, I said to 2000 in Lagos at the coronation of the King of Lagos. He's still the King of Lagos. All over Nigeria, we have kings and queens of especially big urban centers. So too in Lagos. This has been going on for about 200-300 years. So when a king passes on, dies, the next king will come then into onto the throne, and will be there'll be a coronation. So this was the day of the coronation, and I happened to be in Lagos at the time. So I went along for the festivities, and fortunately got in very close. This was especially in Isaleko. This is right in the inner depths of Lagos Island, and the king is here. This is the king here with his commemorative umbrella. It's a sign of his kingship, so to speak. Around him are these men who are his entourage, his court, so to speak. And the young boy here as well. And you see the king holding, one of them is holding his staff. The king also is holding his staff here too as well. So this was, for me, a very fortunate moment that I was able to be in Lagos at the time and also to photograph this particular situation.
Yes, and I also am wondering a little bit about, I know that you're interested in how spirituality and religion sort of affects urban landscapes. Of course, people themselves, all of us, but how they manifest in public space as well.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, Ulrika. In fact, I always say that one of the key vibrations, or one of the things I try to listen to as deeply as possible, are the religious, cultural elements which embed us all over the world. So now this is very much a Yoruba situation. But let's say Southwest Nigerian situation. And it's very much part of the culture, part of a tradition, and also part of many, many different rituals. So now it comes to a fruition in this particular moment, in this particular image. And I'm trying to make an image which hopefully will show something of how we perceive ourselves and move forward. So this will be very similar to, let's say, the coronation of the Queen of England or King of England when it happens in the next time, or things like that. Or recently, or yesterday, Biden's inauguration. So then, but it's very similar, and that's based on a particular myths actually of democracy, and then rituals as well, and the handing of power, and so on and so forth. So this is very much what I'm trying also to show, to say, to take, to make. Important, I think, also in this image are the buildings in the background, and here you see people looking from above, from the stairway and from the balconies down on the situation. It was very, very crowded, and yeah, I mean, this is, of course, long before COVID. So this is the kind of thing.
So we will be moving on to look at some images from Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. So we leave Lagos for Johannesburg. How much time have you spent in Johannesburg photographing?
Altogether, 2-3 months, not in one go, but on different periods. I had, I think, 2 residencies there about 10 years ago, 10 years ago. 2012 actually, so 8-9 years ago. And I really want to go back. I wanted to go back actually last year, but then unfortunately a certain pandemic came into being. And maybe this year I'm hoping still to continue the work. For me, it's one of the most intense cities on the continent because it's a mix of a very African city, at the same time very, very sort of Western, in the sense that it's taken a lot of its architecture and also its way of being from the United States and from Europe, especially Britain, London. So it's a very interesting city for me. And then while I was there during one of my residencies in 2012, I went to Soweto, and it's one of the most so gentle and quiet areas of the city. In Johannesburg inner city at that time, and still is, unfortunately, there's sometimes a lot of petty crime, muggings, people coming at you with guns and knives to rob you right there on the street, despite CCTV cameras and so on. In Soweto, nothing like this. Only at the weekends, then sometimes people drink too much and so some shootings. But otherwise, Soweto was so, and it's a big part of Johannesburg. It's one of the townships in the southwest township, Soweto, but very, very ordered, quiet, and good. Unfortunately, some parts of Soweto are, what do you call it, informal areas, almost like what you could call slums. But also some rich people, some millionaires live in Soweto too. So now they have this terrible thing, which I don't like. They have what they call township tourism. So, but they also have museums in Soweto commemorating the uprisings in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I went to this particular museum. It's an open-air museum. And you can see here an image of one of the first children shot during the 1976 or 1986 or 76, 1976 uprisings of school children who were demonstrating against the imposition of Afrikaans as a teaching language in their schools. So now you have tourists. So in fact, I think these were German tourists actually who came to this particular open-air museum to view these artifacts and objects. And yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, tourism is something for in and of itself. So I think it's good actually to learn about what happened, but also at the time it's a bit problematic. So I took this image. I'm standing with them, and they didn't know I could understand what they were saying. I mean, they weren't being negative or derogatory. They were just taking it in as tourists. They come with a bus or wherever they're staying within Johannesburg into the township, spends a few hours, and then move away again. So I just took this image.
And there's a certain tension, I guess, also in this image, due to the fundamental bloody history of apartheid and the discrimination and separation of people after, skin color, and then these white tourists looking at the images from the 1976 uprising. So there's something in the image that is, it vibrates in a sense. And I also like the fact that there's, in the middle of the image, is this, so it looks like a white streak or something.
I keep on trying to remember what it could be. It might be something from some of because there are other people around me. Something came into the particular image, or maybe from me. I don't know what it is. And like you said, Ulrika, I tilted the image a bit so to somehow say something about this tension, which I think you are very much right about it. One thing I do realize, though, you can't stop history. And over time, what happened, in 1976, or what happened even earlier, it becomes, more and more distant, and we all move on. Huh? So we have to constantly rework, re-understand, try to understand what it was all about, but we all constantly move on. Huh? And then other things, unfortunately, happen in the present day or in the future, which even so, make us even totally forget what happened in the past. Huh? So this image is, for me, it's it's a lot of sadness as well, because people really suffered then. And recently I heard the photographer who took this image was really he had a lot of trouble thereafter, because the authorities then, the apartheid authorities, hunted him down, but he was able to get the film out of the country and get the image, but he never got his full recognition for it. And then I think his sister, she used to work in this museum telling about these things, but she never said she was the sister. So things like this, there's all kinds of narratives embedded within this particular image. And then, of course, as I said earlier, the tourists coming in and now just taking it on as some kind of, passageway in their own tour of South Africa.